Hello, students. Welcome back to another calming journey with the Pillow Professor. Tonight, we're setting sail across the vast and mysterious oceans to explore a force of nature that's both awe-inspiring and fearsome, the tsunami. You've probably heard the word before. Maybe it conjures images of giant waves crashing onto shores, sweeping away everything in their path. But there's much more to a tsunami than what we see in the news or movies. Behind every one of these immense waves lies a hidden story of tectonic unrest, underwater drama, and centuries of folklore and science woven together. So let's settle in, dim the lights, and let your imagination drift like a message in a bottle across time and tide. If you're enjoying these soothing deep dives into the world around us, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Before we go chasing waves, let's begin with the basics. What even is a tsunami? A tsunami isn't just a single dramatic wave. It's actually a series of waves, also known as a wave train, that's usually triggered by a sudden displacement of water. These waves can race across entire oceans at speeds similar to jet planes, and yet, in deep water, they're nearly invisible. A tsunami in the open sea might rise only a few centimeters above the surface, silent, swift, and unnoticed. But when these waves approach the shallow waters near a coastline, everything changes. The wave slows, its height grows, and what once seemed harmless becomes something entirely different. The word tsunami comes from the Japanese word tsu, meaning harbor, and nami, meaning wave, literally a harbor wave. The name itself hints at how deceptively quiet and unnoticeable these waves can be until they reach shore. Now that we know what a tsunami is, it's time to understand what sets one in motion. Most tsunamis are born deep beneath the ocean floor. When tectonic plates shift, they can cause a sudden jolt, an undersea earthquake. If the sea floor is lifted or dropped by just a few meters, it can push up or pull down a massive column of water, and that's all it takes to send waves surging outward in all directions. Earthquakes aren't the only culprits though. Underwater volcanic eruptions can do it too, as can submarine landslides. Even the impact of a large meteorite plunging into the ocean could theoretically trigger a tsunami. Imagine the ripples from a stone tossed into a pond, but on a global scale. One of the most remarkable things about tsunamis is how far-reaching they can be. A disturbance near Chile can send waves all the way to Japan. They are the ocean's messengers, whispering stories of movement deep beneath the crust. Tsunamis have been making waves, quite literally, for as long as humans have lived near the sea, and many ancient cultures left behind clues, tales, and warnings from their encounters. In Japan, wooden signs over 600 years old still stand on certain hillsides, warning "Do not build your homes below this point." These were placed after catastrophic tsunamis, intended to protect future generations. In ancient Greece, the historian Thucydides wrote about strange sea withdrawals and sudden returns of the water, likely describing early tsunami events. And in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, indigenous tribes have stories of the sea swallowing the land, stories that align with geological records of a massive quake and tsunami that struck the region in the year 1700. Tsunamis are not just geological phenomena, they are cultural ones too, embedded in folklore, mythology, and oral history. It's time to get a little nerdy, gently nerdy of course. You might be surprised to know that tsunamis can travel as fast as 800 kilometers per hour in deep water. That's about as fast as a commercial jet. But unlike normal waves, which are generated by wind and surface tension, tsunami waves involve the entire column of water from the surface all the way to the ocean floor. Their wavelengths, the distance from one wave crest to the next, can be over 100 kilometers. And unlike wind-driven waves that break and foam, tsunami waves often appear more like a sudden surge or wall of water as they near land. Scientists use special buoys anchored deep in the ocean to monitor for tsunami activity. These devices detect subtle changes in water pressure, signaling the arrival of something big moving below. The numbers can be staggering, but behind them lies something more elegant: the quiet poetry of physics in motion, stretching from tectonic plates to tiny grains of sand on distant shores. Sometimes, nature gives a warning, if you know what to look for. One of the clearest signs of an approaching tsunami is a sudden and unusual retreat of the sea from the shoreline. Water may draw back hundreds of meters, exposing the seafloor, coral, fish, and shipwrecks not seen in generations. This happened in December 2004, just before the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami. Many survivors recalled seeing the sea vanish before their eyes, unsure whether to run or marvel at the strange sight. Some who heeded ancient warnings, like children taught that if the sea runs away you must too, survived by seeking higher ground immediately. Other signs include a loud roar coming from the ocean, like a train or airplane engine, and of course the shaking of the ground if the trigger is an earthquake. Today, with technology on our side, many countries are part of global tsunami warning systems. Satellites, undersea sensors, and alert networks are constantly scanning for signs of undersea disturbance. But sometimes the best warning is still a story passed down, a signpost on a hill, or the memory of the sea's strange withdrawal. Few modern events have revealed the true scale of a tsunami's power, quite like the tragedy that struck on December 26, 2004. It began with a massive undersea earthquake off the west coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. The quake measured a staggering magnitude of 9.1, one of the most powerful ever recorded. Within minutes, the ocean floor shifted, displacing billions of cubic meters of water and launching waves across the Indian Ocean. The waves hit coastal communities in Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and even as far as Eastern Africa. Some places had only minutes of warning, others had hours, but no systems to spread the word. Entire towns were swallowed, over 230,000 lives were lost across 14 countries. In many cases, it was the second or third wave that proved most deadly, coming after people thought the danger had passed. But amid the devastation were stories of survival and resilience. In one village, schoolchildren had just been taught in science class what a tsunami was. When the sea receded, they remembered what they'd learned, fled uphill, and helped save hundreds of lives. It was a heartbreaking chapter, one that reshaped international policies and ignited a global push to build better tsunami warning systems. Japan is perhaps the most tsunami-aware country in the world. With its location along the Pacific Ring of Fire, it has faced tsunamis throughout its history and learned from them. On March 11, 2011, the Tohoku earthquake struck off the northeastern coast of Honshu. The resulting tsunami towered over seawalls and swept kilometers inland. Waves reached heights of over 40 meters in some areas. The tsunami triggered a nuclear crisis at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant, leading to one of the worst nuclear disasters since Chernobyl. But Japan's long history with tsunamis also showed its strengths. Warning sirens blared within seconds. Emergency broadcasts reached millions. People in coastal areas had drilled for this moment their entire lives. Though the disaster claimed nearly 20,000 lives, many more were saved by the systems, structures, and cultural knowledge in place. Even the landscape reflects this awareness. Vertical evacuation buildings, tsunami evacuation towers, and memorial stones that read, "Remember the tsunami, do not build below this point." It's easy to think of tsunamis as only recent phenomena, but the Earth keeps its own long memory, written in layers of sand and silt. Geologists study deposits left behind by ancient tsunamis. These can be found far inland, where sea sand doesn't belong, sometimes buried beneath layers of forest or farmland. In places like Washington State, Oregon, and Northern California, evidence points to a massive tsunami that hit in the year 1700, the same one recorded in Japanese documents across the Pacific. These discoveries have helped piece together seismic timelines and earthquake histories, allowing scientists to map patterns and anticipate future risks. What's fascinating is how these silent witnesses, the grains of sand, the twisted roots, the odd stones, speak of events long forgotten by people, but recorded faithfully by the earth itself. It's like nature's own journal, slowly revealed with every careful excavation. There's an old belief that animals know when disaster is about to strike, and when it comes to tsunamis, some evidence supports this. Before the Indian Ocean tsunami, people reported seeing elephants stampeding to higher ground, birds flying inland in large numbers, and dogs refusing to go near the beach. In Sri Lanka, a group of tourists on safari noticed animals becoming agitated and retreating inland moments before the wave struck. How do they know? Scientists believe it may be due to animals' ability to detect subsonic vibrations, subtle shifts in air pressure, or electromagnetic changes before humans can. Some species, particularly those with strong senses of hearing or vibration, may feel the deep rumble of an undersea quake long before we do. It's a reminder that nature is full of clues if we learn how to listen. Tsunamis don't just reshape coastlines, they reshape lives. After the waters recede, what remains is a landscape of loss, confusion, and heartbreak, but also, remarkably, resilience. In Indonesia, schools were rebuilt with evacuation towers. In Japan, memorial parks were constructed to both honor the lost and educate future generations. In Thailand, communities that once relied solely on tourism turned to eco-recovery programs and local farming, strengthening their independence. International aid efforts often surge in the aftermath, bringing in not just relief but also long-term planning, rebuilding infrastructure, training responders, and installing new technology to prevent future loss. The road to recovery is long, often measured in years rather than months. But each effort, every brick laid, every tree replanted, every child educated, becomes a step toward healing. Today, when a major undersea earthquake happens, eyes from above watch closely. Satellites play a vital role in modern tsunami detection. They can measure subtle changes in sea level from space, helping confirm whether a tsunami has formed. These measurements, combined with seismographs, ocean bottom pressure sensors, and real-time communications networks, create a global safety net. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center in Hawaii, for example, monitors seismic activity and sea changes across the entire Pacific Ocean. From there, alerts are sent to at-risk regions, often within minutes. But for these systems to be effective, communication is everything. A warning is only as good as the network that spreads it. That's why tsunami drills, community education, and multilingual alerts are essential. Technology may give us the tools, but people give those tools purpose. Tsunamis don't just impact the body, they affect the mind. Survivors often speak of surreal silence before the wave, or of frozen moments when the brain simply cannot comprehend what the eyes are seeing. The trauma of witnessing such an event can stay with someone for a lifetime. In the aftermath, many experience survivors' guilt, anxiety, or depression, but mental health is often overlooked in the rush to restore roads and buildings. Increasingly, though, support teams are recognizing the need to address not just physical but emotional recovery. Art therapy, storytelling, and group discussions are becoming part of the healing process in tsunami-affected regions. And in schools, especially in countries like Japan, children are taught not just what to do, but how to feel safe again. Because rebuilding the heart is just as important as rebuilding the home. In many cases, tsunamis don't just erase, they also redraw. Some coastlines and islands have been permanently reshaped by the waves they've endured. After the 2004 tsunami, entire stretches of the Sumatran coast shifted. Satellite images taken before and after the event revealed new inlets, where villages once stood, and sandbars where none had been before. In some locations, the coastline had moved inland by more than 500 meters. Even tectonic plates can be jolted into new positions. During the same event, the entire island of Sumatra shifted westward by several meters. Some parts of the ocean floor were uplifted by over 5 meters, while others dropped significantly, like a massive underwater seesaw. In the aftermath, maps had to be redrawn, GPS systems had to be updated. It's a reminder that the Earth, even in its stillest moments, is not fixed. It is always in motion, always writing and rewriting its geography. While the Pacific is the most active ocean when it comes to tsunamis, these waves are a global phenomenon. The Mediterranean Sea has seen its share. In the year 365, an undersea earthquake near Crete caused a tsunami that struck Alexandria in Egypt, killing thousands. Roman historians wrote of ships thrown onto rooftops and harbours drained in seconds. The Atlantic isn't immune either. In the year 1755, a tsunami generated by the Lisbon earthquake swept across the coast of Portugal and Morocco. Waves reached heights of over 10 meters and destroyed many coastal towns. Even small inland bodies of water can produce tsunami-like waves, known as seiches. These are oscillations in enclosed or partially enclosed bodies of water caused by landslides or earthquakes. In places like Lake Geneva or Lake Tahoe, they've left behind surprising historical records of inland surges. No coastline is truly beyond the reach of these waves, but by understanding their patterns, we're better equipped to coexist with them. In the world of science, one of the most powerful tools for understanding tsunamis is the computer model. Researchers use complex simulations to mimic the behavior of water during seismic events. They input data such as seafloor displacement, fault line geometry, and ocean depth, and the model calculates how waves would move through the ocean. These simulations are tested against historical tsunamis to validate their accuracy. Once refined, they can help predict what might happen in hypothetical scenarios, like a major quake along the Cascadia subduction zone or a volcanic collapse in the Canary Islands. Some models are so advanced that they simulate not just wave height and speed, but also inundation patterns, showing how far water would travel inland, how it would flow through cities, and which areas would be most vulnerable. These digital tools, quietly working away in universities and research centers, are like modern-day crystal balls, not perfect, but clearer than guesswork alone. Long before seismographs and sensors, people turned to stories to make sense of the sea's fury. In many coastal communities, tsunamis were seen as acts of gods or spirits. In Polynesian legends, waves were often linked to battles between deities. In parts of Southeast Asia, people believed the sea would punish arrogance or disrespect. After the tsunami in 2004, some survivors in Indonesia spoke of hearing ancestral warnings, dreams, or omens passed down through generations. In Thailand, there were tales of guardian spirits who watched the coastline and offered protection if properly respected. These stories, while not scientific, served an important role. They preserved memory. In regions without written records, folklore kept people aware of dangers long after the original witnesses were gone. Science and story don't have to be rivals. Sometimes they are two sides of the same coin, one explaining how, the other reminding why. Most tsunamis are caused by earthquakes or landslides and follow a fairly predictable size range. But then there are the outliers, the megatsunamis. These are not just larger waves, they are in a different league altogether. In 1958, a massive landslide in Lituya Bay, Alaska, sent over 90 million tons of rock plunging into the water. The resulting wave reached a staggering height of over 500 meters. Trees were stripped from the hillsides, and the landscape was reshaped in moments. Thankfully, such events are extremely rare. They require very specific conditions, confined spaces, steep terrain, and sudden collapses. But when they do happen, they leave behind scars, both physical and psychological. Scientists monitor potential megatsunami risks around the world, including volcanic islands where part of a caldera might someday slide into the sea. The likelihood is low, but the consequences, if ever realized, would be profound. Popular culture loves to dramatize tsunamis, but not always accurately. In films, tsunamis are often shown as giant curling waves like those seen in surfing competitions. In reality, they are more often a wall of water or a rapid flood. They don't always crash dramatically. Sometimes they arrive as a silent, steady rise that continues far longer than expected. Another misconception is that a tsunami is just one wave. In truth, the first wave is rarely the largest. The second, third, or even fifth wave can be the most destructive, and the danger doesn't pass in minutes. It can persist for hours. Some people also believe tsunamis only affect coastal communities, but river mouths, estuaries, and low-lying inland areas can also suffer severe flooding. Understanding the truth behind the myths doesn't just correct the record, it can save lives. Knowledge, in this case, is its own kind of lifeboat. So what happens if a ship is out at sea when a tsunami passes? Interestingly, most large vessels in deep water barely notice a tsunami wave, since the energy is spread across the entire depth of the ocean, and the wave height is low in deep water. Ships may feel only a gentle rise and fall, if anything at all. It's only when the wave nears shore and the water shallows that its height increases dramatically. That's why harbors and coastal marinas suffer damage, while cargo ships farther out to sea remain largely unaffected. For this reason, mariners who receive a tsunami warning are often advised not to rush back to port, but to steer out into deeper waters until the danger has passed. It's a curious irony that the safest place during a tsunami may be the very place the wave was born. Tucked along the Pacific Northwest lies one of the most quietly dangerous geological features in North America, the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Stretching from Northern California to British Columbia, this fault line marks the boundary where the Juan de Fuca Plate is slowly sliding beneath the North American plate. For centuries, it remained a mystery, until scientists discovered buried layers of coastal marshes, underwater landslides, and ghost forests where trees had died suddenly from saltwater intrusion. The evidence all pointed to a massive tsunami sometime in the past. That event is now known to have occurred in the year 1700, the very same tsunami recorded in Japan with no known local quake. For a long time, the connection between those two events went unnoticed, but now it's recognized as one of the most extraordinary examples of transoceanic tsunami impact. Today, researchers believe that Cascadia is capable of producing a magnitude 9 earthquake and a devastating tsunami once again. It may not happen tomorrow, or in 10 years, or even in 50, but the likelihood over time is nearly certain. Communities in the region have begun preparing with evacuation maps, public education, and vertical escape towers. They hope that when the wave does come, knowledge and readiness will carry the day. How a society responds to a tsunami is shaped not only by its technology, but by its culture. In Japan, where the memory of past waves is ever present, tsunami drills are held in schools and offices regularly. Children learn evacuation routes before they learn multiplication tables. Elders pass down stories and songs designed to teach the rhythms of danger and survival. In other parts of the world, community knowledge takes different forms. In Aceh, Indonesia, survivors of the 2004 tsunami became educators in their villages, sharing what they saw and what helped them survive. Some even turned their homes into informal museums, filled with photos and artifacts to keep memory alive. Cultural practices, from rituals to architecture, can make a difference. In some traditional Pacific Island communities, homes are built on stilts or higher ground, not just for beauty, but from ancestral wisdom. Resilience is not just a plan on paper. It's a way of thinking, remembering, and living alongside nature, even its most destructive moods. Engineers have long tried to tame the sea, with varying success. In tsunami-prone regions, one common approach is the construction of seawalls. These towering barriers are designed to absorb or reflect the energy of incoming waves, shielding the land behind them. Japan has built some of the most advanced and extensive tsunami seawalls in the world. But seawalls aren't foolproof. In 2011, the tsunami in Japan overtopped even these massive defenses in some places. As a result, newer strategies now include layered defense, natural barriers like mangroves and dunes, man-made barriers like levees and embankments, and elevated evacuation structures for when all else fails. Some cities have even redesigned their road networks and signage to guide residents efficiently to higher ground, and in low-lying areas, vertical evacuation towers, essentially tall, reinforced platforms, offer a last resort. The engineering challenge is daunting. How do you prepare for something rare, fast, and powerful without creating a sense of false security? The answer may lie in humble redundancy, multiple tools working together, each with its own role to play. Sometimes the best defense against a tsunami doesn't come from concrete. It comes from the coast itself. Mangrove forests, with their dense networks of roots and trunks, can help absorb the energy of waves and reduce their impact on inland areas. In some regions of Sri Lanka, communities bordered by healthy mangroves suffered less damage in the 2004 tsunami than those without. Coral reefs also play a quiet role in protection. These undersea structures break up wave energy before it reaches shore, creating a kind of natural buffer zone. When reefs are healthy and abundant, they can significantly reduce the height and force of incoming waves. Sadly, many of these natural protectors are under threat from pollution, overdevelopment, and climate change. Restoring them isn't just an environmental issue, it's also a matter of public safety. When we nurture these ecosystems, we're not just protecting nature, we're letting nature protect us. The Pacific Ocean has seen more tsunamis than any other body of water. Its communities have endured tragedy, learned hard lessons, and become global leaders in tsunami preparedness. In Hawaii, for instance, warning sirens are tested every month. Maps are posted in every hotel and tourist hub, showing evacuation routes. School children practice drills as routinely as they study grammar and math. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, headquartered in Hawaii, monitors seismic activity across the entire ocean, issuing alerts within minutes of detection. Its network reaches nations thousands of kilometers apart, from Chile to Japan to New Zealand. In Chile, where some of the strongest earthquakes in history have occurred, residents in coastal towns know the routine. When the ground shakes, head uphill immediately. No need to wait. No questions asked. The Pacific tells us something important, that while we may not stop the wave, we can outpace it, with awareness, planning, and a respect for both science and tradition. Not all coastlines are created equal, and mapping the risk of tsunamis is a major part of modern preparedness. Scientists use historical data, satellite imagery, seafloor mapping, and tectonic modeling to create tsunami hazard maps. These maps show which areas are most likely to flood, how far inland water could reach, and what escape routes are safest. In places like Indonesia, these maps are now part of urban planning. New developments must consider evacuation zones. Schools, hospitals, and police stations are placed with risk in mind. In the United States, states like Oregon and Washington have public interactive maps where residents can type in their address and see their risk level. Communities also hold local workshops where people learn to interpret the maps, plan their routes, and prepare their go bags. Maps are more than lines and symbols. They are tools of awareness, quiet guides that can turn panic into action and hesitation into safety. In the crucial minutes after a tsunami warning is issued, there's no time to think, only time to act. That's where preparation makes all the difference. Many coastal residents around the world keep what's known as a go bag, a small, lightweight emergency kit, packed with essentials like water, food, a flashlight, radio, medications, and copies of important documents. The golden window for evacuation can be frighteningly short. After a local earthquake triggers a tsunami, residents might have just 10 or 15 minutes to reach higher ground. In places like the Aleutian Islands or parts of Chile, those first few minutes are everything. Practice matters too. Knowing your route, having a meeting point for family members, and rehearsing your response until it becomes instinct. All of this can reduce hesitation when the moment comes. It's not about fear, it's about readiness. Like fastening a seatbelt before takeoff, it's a small act that prepares the mind and body for the unexpected. Long before satellites and sensors, indigenous peoples lived in harmony with the rhythms of the sea, and their knowledge still holds immense value today. In parts of British Columbia and Alaska, indigenous oral traditions speak of entire villages wiped away by great waves following the shaking of the ground. These stories are often told in song, in carvings, and in dances, passed down over centuries. In Papua New Guinea, certain clans avoided building homes near the shoreline not because of modern risk assessments, but because of ancestral warning stories. After the 2004 tsunami, these communities were among the least affected. In New Zealand, the Maori people hold legends of the Tanawa, guardian spirits of the water, who would become restless when danger approached. While these stories are symbolic, they often carry kernels of memory and ecological observation embedded within them. This kind of memory isn't found in databases. It lives in people, in elders, in customs, in the subtle ways that land and story intertwine. Behind every tsunami is a cascade of physical forces, a dance of energy, matter, and motion. At its core, a tsunami is a transfer of energy. When the seafloor shifts during an earthquake, it pushes a column of water upward. Gravity then pulls that water down, but the energy doesn't vanish. It spreads outward in all directions as a wave. In deep water, this wave moves fast but remains low, often under a meter high. As it approaches shallow water, the base of the wave drags against the seafloor, slowing down the front while the back continues at speed. The result is a dramatic rise in wave height, sometimes growing tenfold in a matter of seconds. This is why tsunamis don't break like normal waves. Their energy isn't just on the surface, it's contained throughout the entire water column, making them far more powerful and persistent. Understanding this physics is not just for scientists in labs. It's the knowledge that helps predict arrival times, simulate inundation, and build smarter coastal infrastructure. One of the strongest tools in tsunami preparedness doesn't come from a lab or a government office. It comes from a classroom. In schools around the world, children are learning about tectonic plates, wave mechanics, evacuation protocols, and early warning systems. In Japan, students are taught that after an earthquake you must immediately seek higher ground, no exceptions. In Indonesia, teachers incorporate tsunami drills into everyday learning. Children sing songs about what to do if the sea runs away. In some cases, these lessons have directly saved lives. During the 2004 tsunami, students who had learned about the signs of a tsunami in school helped evacuate entire villages. Education empowers people to act with confidence. It replaces confusion with clarity and helplessness with action. Every lesson taught becomes another link in a chain of resilience that can stretch across generations. Tsunamis have surged through our stories, films, and imaginations for decades. From dramatic Hollywood blockbusters to quiet novels and ancient myths, they've served as both literal and symbolic forces of nature. In movies, they're often exaggerated for effect. Towering waves curling over city skylines, swallowing landmarks in minutes. While visually stunning, these portrayals sometimes distort how tsunamis actually behave. Still, they tap into something primal, our awe of the sea, our respect for its power, and our vulnerability when the earth reminds us who's in charge. In literature, tsunamis are often metaphors for emotional overwhelm, sudden change, or irreversible transformation. In poetry, they've been described as the breath of a sleeping god, the exhale of the deep. These depictions may not always be accurate, but they reflect a truth. Tsunamis stir something deep in us, a recognition of how small we are and how strong we can be when we face the storm together. Behind every statistic is a face, a name, a family, a memory. In the aftermath of every tsunami, survivors carry stories that shape how we understand these events. A mother who clutched her children as they fled uphill. A fisherman who watched his boat rise above the treetops. a child who remembered a story their grandmother told and chose to run, not freeze. These stories travel. They're told in interviews, documentaries, and classrooms. They help us grieve, but they also teach. They tell us where systems failed and where human instinct, love, or luck stepped in. When we listen to these stories, we connect the global to the personal. We remember that while the wave may be vast, its impact is always intimate. While tsunamis are largely visual and physical events, they can also be heard if you're listening closely enough. Many survivors describe a deep, thunderous roar just before the wave arrives. It's not the crashing of water that we often imagine, but more like the low rumble of a passing train or the growl of distant thunder. Some compare it to a jet engine, constant, growing, and impossible to ignore. Underwater, the noise is even stranger. Hydrophones, underwater microphones, can pick up the frequencies generated by undersea quakes and landslides. Scientists now analyze these audio signals to improve early detection. A sudden burst of seismic sound followed by the characteristic hum of moving water can serve as a quiet warning sign. In folklore, this eerie sound was sometimes called the voice of the sea, a final murmuring breath before the storm. It's one more reminder that the ocean is never silent, and sometimes it speaks in ways we are only just learning to hear. In the past, a tsunami might pass through a village with few survivors left to tell the tale. Today, we live in a world where nearly every person carries a camera in their pocket. During the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, shocking footage emerged, waves overtaking hotels, surging through streets, carrying cars and buildings with them. In 2011, videos from Japan showed the terrifying speed and relentlessness of the water as it swept inland. These videos do more than document. They educate. They show how quickly water rises, how debris turns deadly, how escape windows vanish in seconds. Researchers use this footage to refine models and study flow dynamics. Teachers use it to prepare students. Emergency responders use it to improve plans. It's difficult footage to watch, but it holds value as raw, real records of what happens when the deep comes calling. And for those who lived through it, these images are not just data. They are fragments of memory, frozen in pixels and sound. After the waters recede, rebuilding begins, but it is never simple. The physical damage can be overwhelming. Homes destroyed, roads swept away, power lines downed, but it's the emotional landscape that often takes longer to repair. Communities mourn the lives lost, the stories interrupted, the photos and keepsakes washed into the sea. Yet, again and again, people rise. In Banda Aceh, one of the hardest hit cities in 2004, families have rebuilt homes on higher ground, markets buzz again, mosques and schools stand anew. Some survivors work as tsunami educators, visiting classrooms and telling their stories so that others will never forget. In Japan, new neighborhoods have been planned around evacuation routes. In Thailand, beach communities have woven memorial parks into the coastline, places of quiet reflection where the past meets the present. Grief does not vanish, but it can grow alongside hope, and every seed planted, every school rebuilt, every child taught, all of it becomes part of the wave that comes after the wave, a quieter one, a gentler one, the wave of healing. As our technology advances, so too does our ability to understand and anticipate tsunamis. One emerging area is the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. By feeding algorithms with vast amounts of seismic, oceanographic, and historical data, scientists are training systems to detect patterns and improve response times. These programs can even help anticipate how different communities, with different terrains, populations, and infrastructure, might be affected by the same wave. Meanwhile, new satellite constellations promise faster sea level detection and real-time data relays. Deep ocean sensors are becoming more sensitive, more affordable, and more widespread. But the future isn't just about tech. It's about trust. Trust in scientists. Trust in early warnings. Trust in each other. Because no matter how sophisticated our systems become, They're only as good as the human choices that follow. The sea will always move, but with knowledge and cooperation we can move too, smarter, faster, and more together than ever before. Tsunamis don't recognize borders. When one strikes, it often affects many nations at once, and that means cooperation is key. The Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 sparked a massive international response. Countries with no coastlines sent aid. Scientists from around the world came together to help model and map the event. New international agreements were formed to improve early warning systems and share data in real time. In the Pacific, organizations like the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission coordinate preparedness efforts across dozens of nations. Whether it's a buoy network, a shared satellite feed, or a multilingual alert system, the goal is the same: no one should face the wave alone. Even small island nations with limited resources have found ways to participate by offering observation posts, sharing evacuation protocols, and contributing local knowledge. The wave may be global, but so is the will to prepare, to protect, and to persevere. Not all tsunamis are born from earthquakes. Sometimes the seafloor itself slips and tumbles, triggering waves that arrive without any seismic warning. These events, called submarine landslides, occur when loose sediments on the ocean floor suddenly collapse. It can happen after a storm, a volcanic eruption, or even long after an earthquake has passed. One notable example occurred in 1998, off the coast of Papua New Guinea. A relatively small earthquake triggered a landslide beneath the sea, which in turn produced a tsunami over 10 meters high. It struck the coast with little warning and claimed more than 2,000 lives. Because these events don't always accompany a major quake, they're harder to detect, but scientists are studying areas where undersea slopes are steep, sediment is thick, and tectonic activity is high, all ingredients for a future landslide-triggered tsunami. They are, in a sense, the hidden dominoes of the deep, quiet, waiting, and powerful in their potential. As coastal cities grow, architecture becomes not just an aesthetic choice, but a lifeline. In some regions, buildings are designed to resist the impact of tsunami waves. They may feature reinforced concrete, elevated platforms, or breakaway walls that allow water to pass through without collapsing the entire structure. In Japan, certain public buildings are designated tsunami evacuation points. Their roofs are flat and accessible by exterior stairs, so people can reach safety even in crowded urban settings. Some structures are even engineered to float, emergency shelters that can rise with the water. In low-lying areas of Southeast Asia, architects are exploring stilt-based designs, floating houses and buildings made from materials that are both durable and locally sourced. Architecture can't always stop nature, but it can buy time, provide shelter, and save lives. It's where design meets resilience, and where beauty serves a deeper purpose. When a tsunami is on the way, words matter. Tsunami warning systems use specific terminology to guide public response. A tsunami watch means a tsunami is possible. A tsunami advisory indicates it may produce strong currents or waves, dangerous, but not necessarily destructive. A tsunami warning means a tsunami is imminent or already occurring and immediate action is needed. But translating these messages into public understanding is its own challenge. In multilingual regions, alerts must reach people in many languages and through many channels. Sirens, text messages, television, radio, and even social media. In some areas, color-coded maps are used to help people visualize their risk zones. In others, sound patterns from sirens differ depending on the severity of the warning. The goal is clarity. Panic thrives in silence and confusion, but preparation grows in simple, familiar language. When the message is clear, people move. And when people move, they live. Technology is vital, but often the most effective tsunami readiness begins with neighbors. Community-based preparedness programs bring people together to plan evacuation drills, create local alert systems, and map out safe zones. They build trust, and that trust becomes essential in the moment of crisis. In small island nations like Samoa and Vanuatu, elders lead storytelling circles that include tsunami survival tips. In parts of Chile, coastal towns appoint evacuation leaders, responsible for guiding their block or street to higher ground. These hyperlocal strategies fill the gaps that centralized systems might miss. A siren might not reach every alley, but a neighbor knocking on doors can. And in the aftermath of a tsunami, it's these same networks that distribute food, check on the elderly, and begin the work of recovery. A prepared community is more than a checklist. It's a net of care woven person by person. Knowing what to do is one thing. Practicing it is another. In tsunami-prone regions, regular evacuation drills are part of everyday life. Schools, offices, and even entire towns participate in rehearsals that simulate an approaching wave. Sirens wail, routes are walked, and safety zones are reinforced. In Japan, these drills are deeply embedded into the culture. They are scheduled annually, often on the anniversary of past disasters. Children grow up with the knowledge that safety is not something you wait for, it's something you do. In the Philippines and Indonesia, coastal drills often include simulated earthquake shaking, community briefings, and first aid training. These drills may feel repetitive, even boring, but repetition is exactly what makes a response instinctive. When panic floods the brain, the body follows what it has rehearsed. A practice path is a safe path, one you can walk even when your mind is racing and the clock is ticking. Could tsunamis happen on other planets? It might seem like science fiction, but researchers studying the moons of Jupiter and Saturn believe that something very similar could occur on their icy surfaces. Europa, for example, has a vast subsurface ocean beneath a frozen crust. If an asteroid were to strike, or if internal tectonics shifted suddenly, it could theoretically create waves beneath the ice, extraterrestrial tsunamis. On Mars, evidence suggests that long ago, it may have had oceans. Some scientists believe that ancient Martian shorelines show patterns consistent with mega-tsunami events, possibly triggered by asteroid impacts. While we may never stand on those shores and feel the waves, these cosmic theories remind us of something beautiful. The forces we study here on Earth, tectonics, water, waves, may echo across the solar system. The language of motion, it seems, is universal. After a tsunami, the damage isn't limited to buildings and landscapes. It flows deeply into economies as well. Coastal towns often rely heavily on tourism, fishing, agriculture, or trade, all of which can be devastated by a single wave. Ports are destroyed, roads are cut off, and livelihoods vanish overnight. In some places, it can take decades for economic stability to return. Governments respond with relief packages and international aid. Reconstruction projects inject jobs and funding, but rebuilding requires more than cement and cranes. It requires coordination, transparency, and time. Insurance plays a role too. In wealthier nations, businesses and homeowners may recover more quickly thanks to strong insurance coverage. In lower-income countries, the absence of these safety nets can slow everything down. But amid the loss, opportunities can also rise for smarter urban planning, sustainable industries, and new models of local cooperation. Like a forest after fire, economies can regrow, if nurtured with care. In the wake of a tsunami, grief becomes communal. Across cultures, spiritual traditions offer solace, understanding, and a way to honor those who are gone. In Thailand, families light lanterns on the sea. In Japan, temple bells ring for the departed, and small altars are built with photographs, incense, and folded cranes. For some, the ocean becomes a sacred place, both the source of life and a resting place for loved ones. Ceremonies are held at sunrise or sundown, where people gather, speak the names of the lost, and float offerings into the surf. In places like Banda Aceh, survivors pray at mosques that now stand as memorials. In other regions, moments of silence mark anniversaries, and murals bloom on buildings as colorful testaments to life once lived. Grief may be universal, but how we express it is beautifully varied, and within these quiet moments of remembrance, communities find peace and sometimes purpose. Ironically, tourism, so often disrupted by tsunamis, can also become a tool for healing. In the years after the 2004 tsunami, many affected areas in Thailand and Indonesia saw a gradual return of visitors, but some came not just for beaches, they came to understand, to witness, and to support recovery. Tsunami museums were opened, memorial parks were created, local guides shared their stories not just as narrators but as survivors. The tourism industry adapted, offering ethical, community-led experiences that honored the past rather than ignored it. Revenue from these visitors helped fund new infrastructure, education programs, and small businesses. It allowed the story of the tsunami to be told in a way that empowered the community, rather than defining it solely by tragedy. It's a delicate balance, but when done with respect, tourism can be more than escape. It can be connection. We often measure tsunamis by the height of their waves or the breadth of their damage, but some effects go far beyond any scale. What's the weight of a memory carried through generations? What's the measure of a village rebuilt, not with blueprints but with determination? How do you quantify the quiet knowledge passed from a grandmother to her grandchild? If the sea runs away, you must too. The truth is, some things can't be graphed or calculated, and yet they are just as real. In every place a tsunami has touched, there are new stories of warning signs heeded, of lives saved by instinct or education, of healing years after the water recedes. The sea may wash away footprints, but it cannot erase the paths we choose to remember. Tsunamis are not caused by climate change, but the changing climate may influence how they impact us. Rising sea levels mean that future tsunamis could reach farther inland, coastal erosion could strip away natural defenses, and heavier development in at-risk zones increases the number of people and structures in harm's way. In the Arctic and other frozen regions, melting glaciers and permafrost may destabilize slopes, increasing the chance of landslides into water, and in turn generating tsunami-like waves in fjords or bays. Climate change also shifts population patterns. As low-lying inland areas flood, people move toward the coasts, sometimes unaware of the risks. While tsunamis themselves are geophysical events, their consequences will unfold in a world shaped by climate. Understanding this intersection is not just about science, it's about foresight. For all our progress, the ocean remains one of Earth's greatest mysteries, and tsunamis continue to surprise us. Scientists still debate the precise mechanics of some historical events. Underwater landslides and volcanic eruptions are especially hard to model. The precise triggers of ancient tsunamis remain hidden beneath kilometers of sediment and time. There are questions about early warning systems, about how best to educate tourists, and how to design evacuation strategies for places with little elevation. And then there are philosophical questions about how we remember, how we plan, and how we balance fear with freedom. Knowledge has come far, but the ocean is deep, and the work is never finished. Throughout history, people have used art to process and reflect on the overwhelming nature of tsunamis. In Japan, ukiyo woodblock prints from the Edo period depict massive waves, often stylized and symbolic. While the famous Great Wave off Kanagawa isn't technically a tsunami, it has come to represent the sea's unpredictable force, both beautiful and threatening. After more recent disasters, survivors have expressed their experiences through paintings, murals, and sculpture. In Banda Aceh, a massive fishing boat was carried inland by the 2004 tsunami and now stands as both a monument and canvas, covered in art and remembrance. Children draw what they remember: waves, rooftops, hands reaching. These images become therapeutic, allowing emotions to surface where words might falter. In every brushstroke we find a mirror of loss and resilience, and in every sculpture or mural, a reminder that even the most destructive forces can be answered with creation. Some places hit by tsunamis are never fully rebuilt. In the years following large disasters, governments sometimes declare zones uninhabitable. Entire neighborhoods are left empty, roads blocked off, power lines removed. Nature slowly reclaims what was once bustling. Vines crawling over walls, grass growing through tiles, silence settling where laughter once echoed. These ghost towns become quiet testaments to the sheer force of nature. In Japan, areas affected by both tsunami and nuclear fallout remain sealed. In parts of Sumatra, abandoned villages dot the coastline, preserved in memory and caution. But even in these places, small signs of life persist. Shrines, memorial flags, wind chimes hung from trees. They are not forgotten, only resting. Abandonment, in some cases, is an act of wisdom, a surrender not of spirit, but of space. Tsunamis have marked human history again and again, sometimes as legend, sometimes as record. Here are a few key moments. In 426 BCE, a tsunami struck the Malian Gulf in Greece during the Peloponnesian War, recorded by the historian Thucydides. In 1700 CE, a massive tsunami originating from the Cascadia subduction zone crossed the Pacific and struck Japan with no local quake, a mystery solved only centuries later. In 1755, the Lisbon earthquake caused a tsunami that devastated the Portuguese coast and reshaped European philosophy and politics. In 1883, the eruption of Krakatoa triggered tsunamis over 30 meters high that killed tens of thousands. In 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami became one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern history, claiming over 230,000 lives. In 2011, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami caused widespread destruction and a nuclear crisis, prompting global re-evaluation of disaster readiness. This timeline is not exhaustive, but it reminds us that while tsunamis are rare, they are not new, and they are not going away. Certain landscapes lend themselves to greater risk. Narrow bays can funnel tsunami waves into higher crests. River deltas, with their low elevation and wide floodplains, allow water to travel far inland. Coral atolls, flat and ring-shaped, offer little resistance to rising seas. Urban development can also amplify risk. In places where natural dunes and mangroves have been removed, there is less protection, and as cities sprawl toward the coast, more people and more infrastructure lie in the wave's path. Understanding the geography isn't about fear, it's about insight. Knowing which places are vulnerable helps prioritize planning, education, and engineering. The land speaks if we learn to listen, and the maps it draws in sand and stone may save lives if we learn to read them. There is a strange quiet that can settle after a quake and before a tsunami. This space, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours, becomes a psychological test. Do you wait for confirmation? Do you go back for something? Do you trust the sirens or the silence? In the 2011 Japan tsunami, many survivors recall this in-between moment. Some hesitated, unsure if the wave would come. Others fled instantly, having drilled the procedure into instinct. In that difference, hesitation or motion, survival was often decided. The waiting is the hardest part. It's when doubts creep in and the mind races. It's a space filled with invisible pressure, like the sea gathering itself just beyond the horizon. Preparation gives that moment a shape. A plan turns confusion into action, and awareness becomes the bridge between time and tide. Children are often the quiet heroes in tsunami stories. Tilly Smith, a 10-year-old girl from the UK vacationing in Thailand, recognized the signs of an approaching tsunami in 2004 because of a school lesson. She warned her family and alerted hotel staff. Her actions helped save dozens of lives. Across affected regions, children have not only survived tsunamis but carried forward their lessons. They become peer educators, storytellers, and future scientists. Their drawings hang in classrooms. Their voices echo in drills. And in the process, they transform trauma into power, the power to prepare, to act, and to protect. The memory of a tsunami, once learned young, is rarely forgotten. It becomes part of the rhythm of life, like knowing which trees to climb or which paths to avoid after rain. These young minds become living bridges between disaster and resilience. In the aftermath of major tsunamis, laws often change, shaped by lessons learned, gaps revealed, and the urgency of prevention. After the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, many nations introduced new building codes that required critical structures like schools and hospitals to be built above designated flood zones. Others mandated evacuation signage, siren systems, and regular public drills. In Japan, the 2011 tsunami led to sweeping revisions of nuclear safety protocols and construction standards for seawalls. Funding was redirected to reinforce both physical and social infrastructure. Internationally, agreements were expanded to share real-time data between countries, even those with strained relations. The sea, after all, doesn't honor borders, and laws born of the sea tend to unite, rather than divide. Each new law is like a stone placed in the foundation of future safety, quiet, often overlooked, but when the waters rise again, it might be the only thing that holds. Most people fear what they cannot see, and when a tsunami strikes under cover of darkness, that fear intensifies. Night tsunamis have their own challenges. Visibility is limited. Sirens may be harder to hear over storms or power outages. People are scattered, asleep in homes, on boats, traveling, unaware. Evacuation becomes more difficult. Landmarks are harder to follow. Confusion rises, and hesitation can grow fatal. That's why nighttime preparedness drills are so important. In many tsunami-prone areas, communities now simulate night evacuations, encouraging residents to keep flashlights, shoes, and go bags near their beds. Technology helps too, with emergency alerts that light up phones, vibrating alarms for the hearing impaired, and glow-in-the-dark evacuation signage. Even in the dark, knowledge can light the way. Tsunamis don't just affect people, they change ecosystems. In the hours after a tsunami, saltwater surges inland, drowning crops, salting soil, and introducing marine organisms into freshwater environments. Fish are left stranded in fields, mangroves may be uprooted, coral reefs can be shattered by the force of debris. Yet nature is resilient. Over time, ecosystems find strange ways to recover. In some cases, tsunamis actually clear away invasive species, giving native plants a chance to reclaim space. In others, fish populations bounce back rapidly, aided by reduced human activity in disaster zones. Researchers study these impacts to understand how nature responds to trauma, how long it takes a reef to heal, how far seeds can float, how wetlands regenerate. In the wake of chaos, nature begins again, slowly, stubbornly, beautifully. When the anniversaries come, 1 year, 5 years, 20, the world pauses. In Japan, temples ring bells at the moment the wave first struck. In Thailand, families gather by the sea to offer flowers and prayers. In Indonesia, names are read aloud in quiet ceremonies, voices carrying across rebuilt streets. Some communities plant trees for every life lost. Others launch lanterns into the sky or float candles into the ocean, each flickering light a symbol of someone remembered. These rituals are not about the wave itself, but about the lives it touched, about making space for sorrow, and about holding space for memory. In these moments, the world becomes still. The sea calms, and for just a breath, everyone listens, not to the wave, but to the silence it left behind. There are countless stories of near misses, people who chose, almost on instinct, to turn left instead of right, to run uphill instead of stopping for shoes, to take the stairs instead of the elevator. These last-minute decisions, tiny, quiet choices, often meant the difference between life and loss. One man ran back to grab his grandmother, lifting her onto his shoulders as the wave approached. A woman saw a stray dog barking at the sea and chose to follow it, A child convinced their parents to run simply because something felt wrong. In these moments, the mind stops analyzing, the body takes over, and what's left is a story of intuition, courage, or pure chance. Tsunamis may seem like events of scale and science, but in the end, survival often comes down to seconds and choices made when there's no time to think. Even the most advanced systems are not perfect. There have been times when the alert didn't arrive in time or wasn't taken seriously enough. Sometimes the earthquake that causes a tsunami is so close to shore that no system can respond fast enough. Other times, warning messages are lost in translation, fail to reach rural areas, or are mistaken for false alarms. In certain cases, people ignore the warnings, assuming the sea has spared them before, or simply believing the danger isn't real. These failures weigh heavily on those who work in early warning agencies. They analyze what went wrong, redesign protocols, and learn from each misstep. Every missed alert becomes fuel for better systems. Every mistake becomes part of a larger mosaic, one that, over time, becomes more accurate, more responsive, and more trusted. For those who sail the seas, a tsunami is more than just a coastal concern. It can be a navigational puzzle. After a tsunami, underwater topography changes, sandbars shift, channels narrow, and harbors may be filled with new debris. Navigational buoys can be dislodged or disappear entirely. Port authorities must reassess every inlet, redraw every map. In some regions, entire docks and piers are lost, requiring visiting vessels to anchor offshore until surveys are complete. In others, changes in the seafloor may affect tides, currents, and mooring conditions. Modern ships rely on GPS, sonar, and satellite data, but after a tsunami, even the most advanced instruments must be guided by human judgment. Local captains and fishermen, familiar with the water's every mood, often become invaluable sources of insight. The sea changes shape after a tsunami, and so must those who move upon it. Long before cinema captured their force, tsunamis made waves in written and spoken stories. In Greek plays and Roman poetry, great waves were used to symbolize divine anger or fate's cruel hand. In Shakespeare's The Tempest, though not a tsunami, the sea's sudden fury mirrors the emotional turbulence of the characters. Modern literature, too, grapples with tsunamis, sometimes directly, other times metaphorically. They appear in survival stories, memoirs, and even magical realism, where the line between myth and science blurs. In some indigenous oral traditions, the sea itself is a character, alive, reactive, and watchful. Tsunamis are not just waves, but messengers or reminders. These stories allow us to feel tsunamis emotionally, to explore the human impact not just through data but through drama and language. They are how people make sense of what feels senseless, and how grief is given form. After a tsunami, the act of rebuilding is about more than replacing what was lost. It's about choosing what to remember. Some communities leave parts of the devastation intact. A cracked building, a foundation left untouched, a wall scrawled with markings from the wave's highest reach. These become living museums visible to all, constant reminders of what came before. In Japan, tsunami stones dot the landscape, centuries-old inscriptions warning descendants to build no closer to the sea. Today, many are placed beside modern markers, the old and new speaking together in a quiet chorus of caution. In some places, new buildings are designed with commemorative elements, names etched into walls, timelines embedded into walkways, windows facing the sea, as a gesture of both respect and resilience. Rebuilding becomes ritual, construction becomes tribute, and the memory of the wave is built into every beam. When the sea recedes, the first sounds to return are often the whir of helicopters and the crunch of boots. Emergency responders move quickly, sometimes risking their lives to reach those stranded or injured. They search collapsed homes, deliver water and food, reunite separated families, and create order from chaos. In remote areas, aid must arrive by sea or air. Landing zones are improvised in schoolyards. Rescue dogs comb beaches. Doctors treat wounds by flashlight. Local volunteers are often the first on the scene, forming bucket lines, clearing debris, guiding survivors. Their knowledge of the area, which roads are passable, which hills are safest, becomes essential. It is work that is physically exhausting and emotionally draining, and yet, time after time, they come, uncelebrated, unshaken, unyielding. When the wave breaks us, these are the hands that begin to put us back together. Some tsunamis are remembered forever. Others fade, not because they were small, but because they were never written down. In colonial records, travelers occasionally mention strange floods or the sea walking inland. In old port ledgers, ships are listed as lost on days with no storm. These fragments often point to undocumented tsunamis, events erased by time or never acknowledged in official histories. Today, researchers pore over ancient documents, village chronicles, and even paintings and carvings to uncover clues. A temple inscription in Tamil Nadu, a sailor's diary in Lisbon, a cave painting in Chile. Each piece adds to the puzzle, helping us understand the full pattern of tsunami frequency and reach. The sea forgets nothing, and slowly we are learning to listen to the traces it left behind. The power of a tsunami is not just in the wave itself, but in what it takes down with it. Bridges crumble as supports are washed out, dams overflow or break. Water treatment plants are inundated, causing contamination, gas lines rupture, power grids short-circuit, communication towers vanish in seconds. The interconnectedness of modern life means that a tsunami isn't just a wave, it's a cascading failure across systems, and recovery depends not just on clearing debris, but on restoring the invisible threads that hold society together. Engineers now work to design fail-safes, automatic shut-off valves, elevated substations, collapsible infrastructure that can absorb damage without becoming deadly. Resilience lies not in resisting the wave, but in knowing how to bend, break safely, and return stronger. Above the clouds, orbiting quietly, satellites serve as silent sentinels in the effort to monitor tsunamis. These instruments don't detect the wave directly. Instead, they notice changes in sea level, temperature, and even gravity caused by undersea events. Paired with GPS data and deep ocean sensors, satellites help confirm when a tsunami has formed and where it's going. After a disaster, satellites become tools for recovery. They map flooded areas, spot stranded survivors, and assess infrastructure damage, often before responders can arrive. In places with limited access, this view from above becomes the first and clearest picture of what's happened. Some new satellites can detect millimeter-scale changes in ocean height. Others track coastlines over time, helping predict which areas are sinking, shifting, or becoming more vulnerable. From so high above, the world looks peaceful, but in that quiet orbit, data pulses down, watching, waiting, ready. For creatures of the ocean, a tsunami is a shockwave that travels through their entire world. Sudden changes in pressure and turbulence can disorient or injure fish, whales, and dolphins. Coral reefs may be ripped apart, kelp forests flattened, and seabeds shifted. Turtles can be washed far from their feeding grounds. Shore-nesting birds may lose entire colonies. But marine ecosystems are surprisingly resilient. Within months, new coral polyps begin to form. Fish return, seagrass regrows. In some cases, old pollution is swept out to sea and replaced by cleaner substrates. Researchers tag and track marine species after tsunamis to understand how they adapt and migrate. In certain regions, animals have become accidental sentinels, their patterns providing early hints of underwater disruption. Even here, in the sea's own community, life continues, tentative, watchful but undeterred. When a tsunami nears the coast, small fishing boats and local mariners face a dilemma: stay or flee. In deep water, tsunamis are barely perceptible, but in harbors and shallows they become deadly. Many experienced seafarers know that heading out to sea quickly and at full throttle may be safer than trying to tie down and flee on land. During past tsunamis, some fishing vessels have ridden the waves out and returned to find their villages destroyed. Their boats, often humble wooden hulls, became lifelines not just for survival but for rescue. Still, it's a choice filled with risk. Waves don't always behave predictably. Communication may be cut off, fuel may be limited. In the calculus of survival, knowledge of the sea becomes everything. Knowing the depth, the currents, the weather, and above all, the signs. For many mariners, that knowledge is passed down not in manuals but in muscle memory and stories. To many, the ocean looks flat and endless, but to scientists it's full of signals. Slight changes in wave height, anomalies in current patterns, unusual movement of water masses. These tiny clues help researchers build models, test hypotheses, and improve predictions. Wave buoys bob with sensors that record pressure, direction, and speed. Undersea cables detect seismic motion. Drifting floats send back data on temperature, salinity, and vertical turbulence. It's a constant stream of information, noisy but rich. Scientists often work in teams across countries, languages, and oceans. One team may detect an event, another runs the model, a third issues the alert. Their coordination is a kind of symphony, invisible to most but essential to all. This ability to read the sea, to see in numbers what others only feel, transforms raw nature into informed action. For coastal residents, the idea of a tsunami is never far from the imagination. It lives in the background, quiet, but ever present. People hang whistles near beds. Emergency packs are stored by the door. Children grow up knowing the path uphill better than the walk to school. And then, sometimes it comes. The wave may arrive not with drama, but with silence, a receding sea, a stillness that doesn't make sense, a glimmer of something on the horizon, taller than it should be, a noise, low and growing. You don't hear it run for things. You run for time. When the wave reaches the doorstep, there is no room for questions, only motion, only memory, only the instinct that's been practiced over and over again just in case. And if it passes without harm, you breathe, you go home, and you prepare again. Some of the most remarkable tsunami survival stories begin in schools. In Japan, many schools are built on higher ground or designed as vertical evacuation points. Teachers are trained to lead students in orderly evacuation. Drills are frequent, sometimes monthly, ingrained in the rhythm of the school year. In 2004, in several Indonesian villages, teachers led entire classrooms to safety just minutes before the waves struck. In one instance, a class that had learned a simple rhyme about the sea receding, "If it goes back, don't go slack," escaped by singing it as they ran. These are more than lessons. They are rehearsals for real life. In some regions, schools double as tsunami education centers for parents and the wider community. The child becomes the teacher. The knowledge becomes generational. And sometimes, when the water comes, the school becomes the reason a village survives. And so, dear students, we come to the end of our long, slow journey across the trembling sea. We've explored the origins of tsunamis, from the shifting plates beneath the ocean floor to the ancient legends carved in stone. We've followed waves across centuries, across continents, and through the lives of those who remember, rebuild, and teach. Tsunamis are rare, but their lessons are timeless. They remind us how deeply connected we are to the world beneath our feet and to the waters beyond our shores. They remind us of nature's power, not to frighten us, but to encourage wisdom, preparation, and respect. The wave may come without warning, but our understanding does not have to arrive late. Through science, through stories, through the quiet strength of communities that remember, we learn, and through learning, we stay ready. Rest well, students.